Alright, today we're going to be installing the BBK cold air intake on my 2004 Mustang. So, first thing inside is going to be a box that will contain the pod filter for your intake. And this is what's going to go inside the fender well that's going to actually take in the air to go into your engine. The next thing you've got is the mounting plate that's going to hold that part in the fender well. And this is going to mount to the side of your engine bay, and this is going to be on the other side of this inside your fender well. You've got your tubing and coupling rubber pieces that are going to be holding the entire thing together. And now we get to the actual pipe that everybody sees in the engine bay, which when ordering mine I opted for the blackout series because on my car I'm going for the black and orange theme, so I figured it would look better than the chrome. And every BBK induction system comes with their logo bolted to the actual tubing. And it also comes with all the necessary hardware and instructions and pieces you need to put everything on. Alright, let's get started. Alright, so we're going to remove the factory air box before we can start putting on the cold air. So the first thing you're going to do is remove the mass airflow sensor. Disconnect it from the connector that sends it back into the ECU. And then the next thing you're going to want to do is go around to all these clamps that hold it together and just unscrew those, loosen them up to where everything will come unattached from the throttle body, and the hose will come off of the actual air box. So we'll go ahead and unscrew those. And we'll disconnect. It should just come right off. Like that right there. There's that piece off.
It just popped right out.
Lay that in here. So now you've got your throttle body and your vacuum line that is free, that's going to have to attach back to the new cold air intake. Alright, so next thing you're going to remove is the vent that contains your mass airflow sensor in here. And in a minute we're going to have to crack this open and get the sensor out of here to install into the new cold air intake. Okay, so to crack the box open where your mass airflow sensor is, you're going to have to just pull these little clips off all the way around, and the bottom half should just slide out like this right here. And your mass airflow sensor is going to be right here. This is the part you're going to need. You're going to have to take this off and it'll reattach to your new cold air intake. Alright, so you don't actually have to take this piece off. This entire thing here is your mass airflow. So you're going to have to just undo these screws around here, and this is going to go between your new pipe and the elbow and the long part of the new pipe that goes from the throttle body. So you're going to unscrew these. Set that there. And that should come right off. There we go. And there's your mass airflow sensor disconnected from the vent. And then all you have to do now is get this rubber bushing out of here that's containing your wires that's holding it together. Alright, so next step is to remove the filter, which the previous owner of this car put a K&N performance filter in here, which is very, very dirty. So we're going to be replacing that with the new BBK filter that came with the cold air intake, which is over here. Much nicer. Alright, so now we've got to pop this thing back, and it should pop right off of here. Alright, so I was wrong. You do actually have to remove this bushing piece right here from the clip here. So we'll take that out, and then you'll just be able to lift your factory airbox right off. The only thing left would be the little rubber intake that is mounted under your fender well, which is actually what gets the air in. And now your factory airbox is removed. Alright, so now we're going to attach the mass airflow sensor to the elbow part that's going to go into the fender well. So you're going to line it up like this and use the 4 bolts that were supplied with the air intake to mount this to the piping. So you can put that on and you'll put the nut down here on the bottom of it. And you'll do that around all 4 corners and tighten them down, and then the other side should just slip on here with one of the supplied rubber seals.
This is the BBK cold air intake on our dad's V8.
Alright, so for this flat piece, you have to, with the supplied rubber ring, you're going to insert that around the rim of this, and you'll have to cut it because they give you too much, so you'll cut it, and that way you can get it to fit flush right there. And then you're going to have to attach these 2 studs to the bottom of this thing, so that way they're facing downward like that. And then tighten them down using the Phillips screwdriver up here. Okay, so here is where your factory airbox and intake part sits. And when you put these new things in, they're going to fit down in these holes right here. But when you remove your airbox, they sometimes stick with them because they just pull out. So you'll need to remove them from the factory one and put them back down in here so that these will snap down into them. And you'll also need to remove this piece, which was bolted in right here, if you remember, and it'll stay attached to that. So you'll undo that, put it into the new groove that was here, and you should be able to snap this straight down in the holes, and it should bolt up like that right there. Okay, so on the tube that comes from the throttle body to the mass airflow sensor, there's going to be a hole drilled in here. And on a V8 car, there's a sensor that goes in there, but on a V6 car, you don't need that. So BBK supplies you with a rubber grommet and a stud that you're going to put in here, and it'll block that hole off. And you're also going to go ahead and put the rubber boots on either end and put the clamps on around these 2 divots here, down here, so you can go ahead and screw and tighten them down onto the throttle body and the mass airflow sensor. Okay, so what we didn't realize is there was a plastic piece in here. It was a little nipple that connects this piece to the inlet tube, and it looks like this right here. And it was lodged in this tube here, and you have to pull that out. That way that this tube can slip over this piece that's welded to the inlet tube. And then you're going to assemble all the parts together. You're going to be able to slide it right in here and put the clamps around the 2 rubber housings and slip them over the throttle body and the mass airflow sensor down here, and you're going to want to take and tighten these down and insert the elbow end through your wall bracket here, and then you're going to take and put the filter up underneath the fender well.
Okay, so after you've gotten everything attached and in place and tightened down, you just have to take the actual air filter and put it up through the fender well to attach it to the pipe right there.
Okay, so when you're under here, you're going to be able to take your air intake, and there's going to be a hole right here. You're going to take the filter and stick it up through here, which will get it up into the fender well. And if you look through this little hole right here, you can see the filter up in there. You'll take your arm and stick it through that hole, and you'll put the filter up here, and you'll bring it down from the top, and it should snap right on. And you'll have to take a 11mm socket and tighten this thing down onto the tube so it won't come off. And once you do that, your cold air intake should be installed.